Welcome to the channel. This week on the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener, we look at the two types of heated propagators that I've got for seed raising and review the good things and the bad things of them. And I tackle one of the last things on my winter to-do list, the hydrangea pruning. Come potter with me in the garden. My name is Dawn and I am the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener. Good morning. Well, it's Wednesday, it's raining, and I'm inside again. So with the yucky weather and what have you, I thought I would go through a few of my seedling things, but the main reason I thought I'd do this sort of thing is to talk about heated propagators and whether they're worth it or not, and then look at some other options of things that you could get for seed raising to get your seeds ahead early. So forever, like everyone else, I have done my seeds in little pots on windowsills or in really, really sunny spots outside. Certainly in my last place, I had a really, really sunny spot just outside the lounge. I never bothered starting my seeds till late October because I was working full time, so I didn't do a huge amount, and I had 2-3 little raised beds that produced enough for summer. I didn't garden over winter, so I never really bothered about some serious seed propagation equipment. However, when I moved to my current house about 10 years ago, my back issues had started, so I had gone to part-time work to try and alleviate that, and I had a wee bit more time, and I was using my gardening as my physio. Walking long distances I used to do years ago, loved it, but that just wasn't an option anymore. I had to tailor my physical activity to meet my physical abilities. So gardening, which I had loved and really enjoyed all my life, was a really good option for it. So I started getting a bit more serious into the seed raising, and I had a really good indoor area that I could do it, and that's how it started. So over the years until the beginning of last season's seed raising, I still did just ambient temperature. Temperature propagation. I started doing it more inside because I had the space and I had the huge glass windows with the sun, etc. So I did it that way, and I got good results. Not everything would pop up, especially the stuff that really needed hot propagation. So that's the chilies, the eggplants and the capsicums. Tomatoes not so much. I got good results just doing what I was doing, and many other things. So that's what I had been doing up to the beginning of last season's propagation season. However, I saved a few pennies and I decided that I would like to be able to get a little bit of a head start on my seeds, and I opted to buy some propagators. Now, I looked at many different types, and there were some like classic ones. Excuse me, Lou's just arrived inside and he's howling his head off. Hold the phone. Sorry about that. That was Lou arriving in from being outside in the rain, and he was drowned, absolutely soaked to the pelt, wanting to be dried, as he often does. Bo had been in just a few minutes before that, so both of them have now dried, and they'll probably both go outside again and get wet again. Anyway, after that cat interruption, I was talking about my research on seed propagators. And I did a lot of research and I knew what I wanted, but I was a bit, how good were they? I'd read the reviews, and I know you've got to take reviews carefully and weigh them up because some people have got expectations that are above what the product is actually able to provide anyway. So I ended up going with a static temperature one that I bought from a local New Zealand company. I think the actual propagators they import, they're not New Zealand made. And the thing about these ones was that they came with the propagator, which you then filled with, it was sealed propagator with a heat mat sealed in. Then you had a water bath area, so you put the water bath in, and then you put a little stand in, and you put a wicking mat, and then it had trays that you could put in with seed trays inside those. And they were self-watering ones, and I thought, oh, that's quite a good idea. I'd read a lot about seeds drying out and being desiccated and what have you, so I went with those. And I'll show you the full containers in a minute. But in time, I realised that the static at 19 to 20 degrees, if you're lucky 21, just wasn't going to cut it with the really heat-loving seeds like the chilies, the capsicums, and eggplants, etc. So I quite quickly after that bought myself some seed raising mats that had a variable temperature and a thermostat, and those are the ones that I use for the heat-loving seeds, and I use the static temperature one for a lot of other things, and I'll go through what those are in a minute, but I'll just grab the boxes and things like that and I'll show you what's what. Okay, so this is my seed raising area. It's next to a big window, and I'll explain the rationale behind that. Ignore this. This is my fungus gnat monitor. You can buy these and they catch the fungus gnats, and you work out whether you've got fungus gnats or not. Mine's okay at the moment, it's just got a bit of dirt on it because it kept falling over. So my setup, I've just got a big long table that I bought from a store, just a resin one, nice and easy, sits here all the time. If I'm not using it for seed raising, I'm often got seeds drying on it. So this is one of my two static seed raising trays. They have got the tray that is hollow inside there with the mat just in the lower part that you can't quite see there. Okay, so it's sealed inside this plastic casing. And what it comes with is, each tray comes with a set of these three with a wee humidity dome, and inside that is one of these with 12 slots, and this sits inside there, and it's got holes in the bottom too, and it sits like that, and it actually sits on a mat at the back, and I'll just grab the mat and show you. So what you do once you get it set up in the spot you want, you fill it to a level that I can't quite see on here at the moment with tepid water. You don't want to put cold water in it to start with because it takes forever to heat up. So, and then you have this tray that sits inside and lifts your seed trays up. Excuse me, I'm getting caught by the fungus net thing. And then this one's a bit manky because it's almost near its end of its life. You have this wicking mat that you pop on, and when you get it to pop it on, you soak it first so that it's nice and soggy, and then it fits around this tray, and then it goes into there like that with the three containers filled with your seed medium, so whether you're using potting mix, cutting mix, whatever, and then you've got that to keep the moisture within and help keep the warmth in. Right, so I've got two of those. I find them reasonably good because they are self-watering. Find that the self-watering bit, when the tray is full of seeds and going, only lasts for me around about 2.5 days. So I've got to remember to top it up every 2 to 3 days. It's not the end of the world if it runs dry. It just means that your seeds for a period of time won't be getting self-watered. But so like if I left it for 3 days, the seeds would probably still have enough moisture. The seed medium would still have enough moisture for the seeds. After that, they'd start drying out reasonably quickly. What do I think of it? It's got some really good points and it's got some not so great points. So as far as the self-watering bit's concerned, that's helpful, especially if you're really busy and you're not, like me, a seedling helicopter parent who checks their seeds every day or maybe even twice a day. So, so it's good for that, and it means you only have to remember about watering every 2-3 days, not every day. The things that aren't so good about it, getting the matting can be a wee bit tricky, but once they're really soggy and a bit older like this, they do tend to get easier to put in. The new ones are really quite stiff, and even after being completely soaked, it can be a bit of a tricky thing to get them in. Now, the containers that this comes with are good and bad. Dome's great for before the seedlings come up. It does have a vent, so that's even more helpful. These wee seed trays I find really good, and I'm using them for anything and everything now, because they don't take a huge amount of soil, compost or whatever medium you're using. They've got good holes in the bottom for drainage and or when you're trying to poke out your seed, you want to get the whole thing out if that's what you want. They're a handy size, so if you're doing a tray of something, if you just want to do a single tray of, say, tomatoes, so that they come up roughly around the same time, that's good. What's not so good is these. What happens with the wicking is that I find doesn't matter that that's sitting on that and then that's sitting on that. It's too much of a barrier for the self-wicking, self-watering bit to happen. You end up with thinking, oh, your seeds are getting water. No, they don't. They don't get enough because of this being in the way of the holes for the water. And even with its little holes, or if you drill some more in, it just doesn't do it. So I've basically given these up and don't use them. And I put this directly on my wicking mat now, and that works. And then because if I do want to use the humidity dome, this sits quite nicely just on the top. It can get bumped, but it works, and it keeps in most of the humidity and any extra warmth that it may hold. Now, one of the recent things that I found that's not so good was around your seedlings getting too much water on these self-watering propagations. Excuse if you can hear any noise. Lou's having a feed of biscuits and he's crunch, crunch, crunch. So for a few years now, I haven't had a great strike on my onions, and I could not work out what was going on. So over winter, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos from other gardeners and focusing on a couple of things that haven't worked for me or have suddenly not worked for me, onions being one. And what I found with the onions was that onion seedlings don't like wet feet. What happens if once they've germinated, if they get wet feet, the roots will actually rot. I've talked often about dampening off, which happens between the roots and the actual leaf of the seedling, which is something that happens with things like this, propagators and a damp environment. But these seedlings, onions, the roots will actually rot from the base up and the seedling dies. So I am trying this year to see if it makes a difference using the static propagator, because it's around the right temperature with my onions, with no water in the bed and just directly on to the heat, and just watering them as I would my other ones that I have over here on the variable temperature propagators. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. You can run them. I did a lot of checking to make sure that you can run these without water, and you can, according to some websites. So I'm hoping that's okay. They seem to be going okay now. I've had them going about 3 or 4 days with no adverse effect, but because they're not self-watering, I'm having to remember to water them every day. And you don't drown them, you just give them a quick squirt. What I do is I've got a little recycled water bottle, and I bought these little watering heads. They're just sort of like a miniature watering can. They're not the best, they're cheap as chips, and they do fall apart quite easily. You just got to be careful that wee plastic bit is actually completely inserted into the surround, because it's only got the tiniest little plastic clip and they can go boop, and you end up drowning everything. But I just go through and I just give everything so this is because I've got time. A lot of people haven't got time for this, so this is where the self-watering comes in, quite handy. And just go through and give them a little drink each day, making sure they are nice and dry, because nice and wet, because if they dry out, these little containers, the dirt in there just turns into a hard rock. And you give them a good drink and it goes through the normal wet dry cycle of watering and drying out, and your onion seeds in this case are not sitting with wet roots all the time, which is what the thing that causes them to rot, according to my research over winter. Right, let's go on to the variable seed ones. Give me a moment. Right, on to the variable heat seed propagators. These ones I bought from overseas, but you can actually buy a sort of one, but I think it may only be a static temperature one, like flat mats. And from what I read when I was doing my research last year, it's actually the heating thing behind mirrors to stop them steaming up. So that's what I could find locally made or available in New Zealand. So I ended up buying these ones from overseas. Not my first choice, but you do what you do. So this is the mat. It's just a flat enclosed element into a plastic covering. It's not per se waterproof. It's, like if you dropped a bit of water on it, that's fine, you need to wipe it off, but it won't tolerate being soaked. So like if you put a tray of wet seeds on it, it won't tolerate that. But yes, you can't put wet things on them, which, that's okay. It's not a biggie. So what I do is I put my seed trays in just another seed tray. These are ones that you can buy from the big stores, Bunnings, Mitre 10, all those, and they come as a plastic tray like this, and it's got a humidity dome that goes with it as well, which is very handy when you've got cats, to just pop it over overnight or whenever you need to protect your stuff. So these just sit on the mats. I'm just using the same trays as the other ones. You can buy these separately, and they're not expensive, and of course you can reuse them. So while plastic, it's reusable plastic. It just needs a wash out to get the worst of the stuff off it. So that's my variable seed mats. Now, the good things about them, I can do seeds that like the heat, so that's really good. The temperature thing, let me just grab one from up here. Comes with a reasonably long cord, so it's just easy set, it's not hard. At the moment it's only registering 23. I've actually got it set at 28 because the seed probe, because you need to have a probe as well that sits in the dirt to register if it is actually warm enough. isn't sitting in there properly. And I'll fix that in a minute. It's just because I'm mucking around with them. So easy to set, easy to run. Now, the only drawback that I have found with this is it only fits like one of the bigger trays, but I found these little trays that are just a couple of bucks from the warehouse type of thing. Is the seed probe goes into the soil that you're actually using for the seedlings. Now, if you're only doing one seed per container, it doesn't matter if you pop it in the side, it'll be fine. I tend to do a few more seeds per little hole, depending on the size of the seed. If they're small like a tomato or capsicum or something like that, I try and get 4 in. If they're a bigger seed, so like later on, if I'm doing a cucumber seed or a melon seed, then it's usually just 1 per container. So, but if you're doing 4 and you pop it in the side, you're going to end up disturbing one of your seeds. So this year I'm trying just by leaving one of my little things empty. It's sort of, it's a trade-off. And just popping the seed probe in there. Now, you do need to actually also keep this non-seeded little hole with the probe in it moist, otherwise it just bakes and it doesn't register the appropriate temperature. Now, when I was reading about it, it said, don't get the probe wet, don't get the probe wet, but I kept thinking that doesn't sound right. So I've just been watering. Sometimes I take the seed probe out, water, and then pop it back in, and nothing's happened, so that's good. Last year I was having a few issues with what I felt was that the seed pads were turning themselves off. I think that was a me problem rather than a heat pad problem, because I have my setup here underneath a window, and in the morning it gets the sun. I think what was happening was that the seed probe was getting hot and thinking, oh, I'm hot enough, I don't need to be on, and turn the pads off. So that's what I was thinking was happening. And like today, the pads are toasty because we've got no sun. So yeah, so I'm very happy with them. I bought them as a set of 2 off, I think it was Amazon. I'm not great, I don't like Amazon. My political reasons, I won't discuss them. But, excuse me. Yeah, I do have to say that I have been very impressed with them. I mean, all the stuff on places like Amazon is third-party stuff, so yeah. I will put the name of the product on the description below. I've still got the box, actually, because I have been very tempted to actually get a couple more of these, because I do a lot of seeds, and some of them are for me, some of them are for a project I do for me, but the others I use for some of the community projects that I'm involved in. So I'm actually doing a lot of seeds. So yeah, I'm thinking I might get a couple more. Now, it's all very fine getting your seeds to come up and remembering to water them every day, especially when you're using these heat pads that run at 28 degrees sort of thing. I mean, they will go up to 35, these ones. And the good thing is, because they're variable, if I need lower temps, I can set that as well. But what can happen, and is slowly happening here, and I will sort it out, is that, excuse me, I'll just take that probe out for a second and see if I can show you, is they're getting leggy, but they're also pointing that way. Now, I actually turned this around yesterday. I do them every day so that they will face the other way. And you'll find by halfway through the day that they're pointing in the other direction by that. It's because they seek the light. And that's my big problem and my next, what am I going to do about it thing. So while they're in front of a big window that gets the morning sun and what have you, it's still not actually enough light. So I'm seriously thinking about purchasing some grow lights, but won't be for this season, it'll be for next season. I'll look at end of season sales and things like that and see what I can get that works with what I've got currently. Now, one of the really big things that is a problem with growing seeds inside is that they can grow long and leggy because of the light, but they're also really soft because they haven't been challenged with the weather environment stuff. And there's a little trick that I found out last year, and I used all of last growing season, that worked a treat, and it really did help with the stem strength of my seedlings. And that trick is to set up an oscillating fan, going very, very gently in the distance so that they're just picking up a gentle breeze, and by doing that they just move ever so slightly, and like anything, if you move it, it grows muscles, and plants do have a muscle of sorts. So as they just rock gently in the breeze that the fan creates, they become stronger. The stem becomes stronger, and you don't end up with these floppy, weak stemmed plants. And I did it last year, and it worked. And I've started now. Now I usually pull off my humidity dome once I've got 2, 3, 4 seedlings up on these trays, and it's a mix of trying to keep the humidity in so that the other seedlings will actually come up, and protecting the seedlings that you've already got up, because if you keep the humidity dome on too long, you'll end up with dampening off, which is where it rots at the base and the plant just dies. So I normally take mine off after I've got about 3, 4 seedlings up. So majority of these are off except for that one there, because it's only got one. I've just taken it off for now. Oops, sorry, just dropped my thing. That's not good. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I do with those. And yeah, grow lights will be the next thing. So I'll leave it there for now, and we'll catch up again later in the week. Good afternoon. Well, it is Friday and the sun's out. It's not raining, but it is windy, and that easterly's quite cool. Lou's out here giving me a hand. He's just mucking around down there, but I am determined today to get these hydrangeas done. And that will then only leave me to finish off the very last things in the front border, and then my whole winter to-do list will be done. So I'm quite determined to get that sorted. But here are the hydrangeas. I've got 3 of them. They are a blue colour, really nice blue. That's what they're bred for, but they still do need to have a yearly dose of some acidic type stuff. So I'm going to use a mix of compost and peat today. I've also got azaleas down here. I've got 4 of them. I did originally have 5. I had one down here, but it gave up the ghost. I think just didn't like that spot because it did get a lot more sun than the others. The others are brilliant. They're all out in flower at the moment, and I'll pop a wee photo up and show you them in a minute, but they're looking gorgeous. Right, I'm back. Sorry, you didn't see that, but the phone went. That's the thing about using your phone for recording. It can go off and you actually have to answer it. Right, back to hydrangeas. Now, hydrangeas are actually really easy to prune because the best time to prune them is when they're actually putting out their buds. So these ones are putting out buds. Actually, some of the bits are actually almost putting out leaf. And you just literally prune to a bud so that it's going in the direction you want. So with my hydrangeas, because they are up against the wall of the house, I tend to prune so that they're coming outwards or that way, and the ones up against the wall I prune so they're coming out that way. Now, generally they say cut your hydrangeas down to either 2/3 or a half. I tend to prune mine a wee bit harder, down to about 1/4, only because they're in this narrower passage, and if I don't really prune them back, they get phenomenal growth over summer, and it can narrow the path to the front door right down, and then I get grizzled at by the family, especially after it's rained, because they walk through here and they get brushed by the wet stuff, and long story, you know what it's like. However, this year I'm also going to prune them probably a wee bit harder than the quarter, not because of the stuff I already talked about, but because we're actually planning on painting the house this year. We've been here for about 10 years and it's due a paint. So definitely the bits at the back are going to get pruned way more severe than what they normally would. I'm going to get started because that easterly's cold and I'm starting to turn into a polar pop. But I will just talk you through a couple of these to start with, and then I'll get on with it. Okay, so I'm just going to show you within the sites, and then I'll probably prune this down a bit more later. But there's a bud just there going that way, which is perfect for this because I don't want it coming out onto the footpath. I'd rather it go along the bed. And it's just the normal, snip, done. I do it at 45 degrees only because it means that the water then will run off rather than so much down into the stalk causing rot. With hydrangeas, there's usually not a lot of dead, dying and diseased. There might be a few broken branches that you might need to clip off or what have you. Generally my hydrangeas are healthy. I've not had any disease per se in them, so I've not had to worry about taking that off. And yes, there will be a wee bit of dead stuff, but it's sort of like tips and what have you, and we have had a few frosts lately, so there's a wee bit of frost burn on these ones, but not a lot. So I'll just trim them up. So I'm going to get trimming and I'll bring you back when I'm done and show you what I've done. Right, that took a lot more effort than I thought. Still being on the crutches, it was hard to get in around behind. But I have cut this right back, taken out some quite big lower branches, quite thick stuff. I had to use the loppers and what have you. And as I said, this is a bit more extreme than what I would do normally because I just needed to get it right off the house. There's one or two that I couldn't get that I'll have to get the family to do because I really do want it completely off the house this year. Once the house is painted, then it can do its thing and be less attacked by me. So quite happy with that. I've only got the one done. There's still two to do, but I'll probably get the family to help me in the weekend because, as I said, it was a lot more than what I thought it would be just sitting here chopping. I just couldn't get around the back easily. I haven't had a chance to put the compost and stuff in, but what I'm looking at doing is mixing a 50-50 mix of peat moss and, sorry, the dog's in the back barking, just give me a minute, sorry about that. So what I'm looking to do is a 50-50 peat moss and compost, and I'll spread it around the wider area of the hydrangea itself. I actually have the azaleas too that probably could do with a wee bit as well, though they're growing very well at the moment, but I'll give them mainly compost. They shouldn't need a lot of peat moss and what have you because they're looking very healthy with what they've already got. But to keep the blue in the hydrangeas, I need to give it the peat moss. Right, I'm going to leave it there now for the week and we'll catch up with a coffee and a chat and look at what we've done for the week. Good morning. It's that time of week for a cuppa and a chat, and I've got coffee this morning. So what have we been up to this week? Well, the weather wasn't so great earlier in the week, so I spent quite a lot of time inside playing around with the seeds and what have you. So we did a review of the two types of heated seed propagators I've got, and hopefully that information will be helpful to you if you're thinking about getting seed propagators or anything like that. I definitely find having the heated mat a big bonus. But if you're not doing a lot of seeds, then it may be a bit too much. But if you are like me and do quite a few seeds, yeah, they're really worth it. Yesterday we tackled the hydrangeas. I managed to get one done, but I have lined up the family to give me a hand this afternoon. It's northerly, northwest out here at the moment, so yeah, hopefully get a bit of time outside this afternoon and crack on and get the rest of the hydrangeas cut and then the compost and peat mix put all around them. Next week I'm planning to tackle the greenhouse, give it a good tidy up and what have you, start getting it prepped. Last year I was way behind in my prep for the greenhouse, and it really slowed me down to getting some of my tomatoes and capsicums and chilies in. So I'm going to get started really early and have it ready when the seeds are ready. This coming week I'll be potting up some of the seeds that have already germinated, so they're my chilies, my capsicums and eggplants. Some of them, especially the chilies which I'd done a couple of weeks ago, they're ready to go into the next container. The capsicums and the eggplants probably need till end of this coming week before I do that. But as I clear the seed trays, I'll be starting to put in my tomatoes and get them ready and going. Just like to thank everyone who's subscribed to date. It's really awesome to see that number ticking over. But if you haven't subscribed yet, it is free. You just click on that button and then you'll get notifications of when I drop a video. If you want to see what I get up to on a daily basis, I also have a Facebook page by the same name, The Kiwi Barefoot Gardener, and it just lets you know what I'm up to, what the cats are up to and what the garden's doing. But I'll leave it there now and I'll catch up with you in next week's vlog. So until then, it's bye from me.